If James Gunn isn't stupid and really wants to show the world that DC is going to do a hard reboot, he needs to reboot the Suicide Squad along with it. Because unfortunately, sorry, but the Suicide Squad is part of the old dead DCEU. So with James Gunn planning on rebooting the entire DC universe, I'm actually going to say something. I think if he is planning on rebooting it completely, the Suicide Squad has to be part of that. And look, I love this Suicide Squad. There's a reason why I have it in Blu-ray. This is probably the movie I've rewatched most in the entire DC universe. It's not my favorite DCEU movie. My favorite is still Zack Snyder's Justice League and Batman vs Superman. But I do prefer this movie over movies like Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Shazam, Aquaman. But I'm going to say this right now. I think James Gunn should just reboot everything, whether it's Shazam, whether it's the Suicide Squad. And I'm going to give a couple of reasons here. And again, I'll clarify that I'm a major James Gunn fan. I'm looking forward to what he has in store for the DC Universe. But I do think you can't have it both ways. You either reboot it or you don't. You continue with what the DCU has now, or you make up something new on the spot. And the reason why, and let's get into it. As much as I love the Suicide Squad, it's my third favorite DCU movie. As much as I love that movie, the movie flopped. I believe it didn't even crack 200 million in the box office. I don't remember, but the movie flopped. Now, there are reasons for that, but we won't go into those reasons for now. But the objective fact and the complete truth is it flopped. It is one of the worst grossing movies in the entire DCEU, or I think it is I don't know, I'd have to check. But it definitely is not something the DC universe is proud of when it comes to box office numbers. Now, the good thing is the audience and critics liked it, but overall, it just didn't work. And I'm not saying reboot the Suicide Squad right now. Like, I'm not saying right now announce a new cast for Suicide Squad, do another reboot. No, in fact, I'll say this right now: wait for the Suicide Squad. Do not just make a new Suicide Squad. When you start off your DC universe, you start off simple. You just clarify, look guys, we're just not going to continue with that universe. We're going to have a new cast. Because as far as we know, it seems like Gal Gadot's not coming back as Wonder Woman. Jason Momoa seems like he's going to be playing Lobo and not Aquaman anymore. Henry Cavill obviously is gone. That's been 1000% confirmed. It seems like the entire Justice League is getting recasted. Obviously Flash, Cyborg. And I'll say this, just go back to the basics, go back to the drawing boards. I don't see why we need to constantly have Suicide Squad. And I also think right now the general audience has a sour taste for the Suicide Squad. Because we have to remember that 2016 Suicide Squad movie. That movie, while yes, it made $700 million without China, which is an impressive number, a lot of people didn't like that movie. It was heavily disliked. A lot of people criticized the Joker in that movie, Jared Leto's Joker, even though I like Jared Leto's Joker. But that movie was heavily criticized. It's still seen by most people that are DC fans to be probably the worst, if not one of the worst, although I think Justice League is also in that category. But a lot of people just don't like that movie. And look, we can talk about the day air cut anytime we want. But right now, the objective truth is that movie, while it did well in the box office, it just didn't warrant good enough with the critics and the audiences. Both. Like, literally, when the Suicide Squad was coming out, when this James Gunn version was coming out, I would literally have friends tell me, why are they making a sequel? The first one sucked. And I would have to clarify, it's not really a sequel. It's kind of like a requel, rebooted sequel. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like it's not a reboot, the same cast and everything, but there's just different characters in it. And I do think that part of the reason why the movie failed, the Suicide Squad, is because that first movie just left such a sour taste to the general audience. So right now I do think the IP of Suicide Squad is kind of tarnished. But at the same time, I don't see why rush into Suicide Squad. Yes, it has high potential. Yes, I know there's like a good chance that a movie can succeed box office wise. But just seeing the numbers, seeing how people responded to that first film, I don't see a need for it. And also, Suicide Squad in the comics is never really the important characters, They're not Justice League level, they're not Green Lantern level, they're not in that level of importance. And I understood what Zack Snyder wanted to do, especially because in his universe, Batman was more experienced. A lot of his villains were, obviously from his past, because I believe Batman was Batman for 20 years in the DCEU. But with James Gunn's universe, I don't see why just rush into Suicide Squad. And I do think that if you truly, truly, truly want to establish that this is a reboot, you have to get rid of the Suicide Squad. Unfortunately, that is the case. And I know it's weird because Peacemaker season 2, I believe, has already been filmed or either is filming. So it's like, how are they going to manage this circumstance? What I would say they do, because if you reboot the Suicide Squad, obviously that means you have to reboot Peacemaker. What I'd say is you could continue doing Peacemaker, but just kind of establish that as its own place, like its own area, where you just have Peacemaker kind of doing its own thing in the already dead DCU, but don't bring him to the DC universe. I know that sounds weird, but just keep him there, because I know James Gunn wants to do more seasons of Peacemaker. I just don't think that it would make sense to all of a sudden tell people, hey guys, you see this Peacemaker who was connected to the other DCU? Yeah, he's on our universe. Now, unless Flash is able to answer that question, then I don't know. But I don't, if you truly, truly, truly want to change the narrative, if you truly want to establish that this DC universe is new, you go with the reboot, and that's complete. And this also means Shazam. Zachary Levi, I've always thought one of the most perfect castings in all comic book history is Zachary Levi as Shazam. To me, he's just perfect. But the unfortunate reality is, if you do want to establish there is a new era, even the good has to leave, even the good parts of the DCU, or at least the general audience good, that also has to go and start new. And again, the positive thing here, the major win is that Shazam and Suicide Squad, they're not like the major important, like they're not the core. It's kind of like Marvel, where Iron Man and Captain America were the important parts, but freaking Echo is just a small part of it. Or characters like Echo, like that no one really cares about until you give them a good character to care about, and that's what I would say with Shazam and all these other characters in the Suicide Squad, where yeah, they're great, but they're not the important ones. And also, they're not the money makers, because that first Shazam movie was heavily loved by families, critics, everyone loved it. But even then, it didn't make major numbers. Like, it was good box office wise, but it just didn't make the major numbers. But if you truly, truly, truly want to make the major numbers, boom, you go with Justice League, boom, you go with Batman, boom, you go with Superman. These characters will give you the box office returns as long as you make good movies that people like. As long as that happens, you'll get all the success. But even though I'm a big fan of the Suicide Squad, at the end of the day, I just think that there's no need to bring them back for now. I'm not saying they can't do it later in the future. I'm just saying that for now, in this new rebooted DC universe, in order to really, really hit the nail that it's a reboot, you go ahead and say, we're not continuing with Suicide Squad. And you could also, again, like I said earlier, you could also say Peacemaker is its own thing. Kind of like the Batman, kind of like Joker. And that's okay, because I think DC fans especially are more used to pocket universes, like Elseworld stories. Whereas with Marvel, people are so accustomed to the cinematic universe of it all that to them it would feel weird if Kevin Feige announced that there's going to be something separate. So James Gunn right now has that advantage, where us DC fans, we can accept something being an Elseworld story. We, for Christ's sakes, we had 2 Justice League movies that are completely different from one another. So yeah, DC fans, we're probably going to be the best ones that can respond to something like that. But ultimately, and look, if James Gunn was to say the Suicide Squad is going to also be a part of the DC universe, this current one that we see right here, I'd be happy with it. Just that if James Gunn called me on the phone and said, hey, Isaac, should we continue with Suicide Squad? I'd say no, just wait years. Wait a couple of years. Don't put them on your priority. There's no need, especially if Batman's young, because a lot of Suicide Squad characters tend to be Batman villains, although there's also other villains. Obviously, Suicide Squad can be any really villain, but if you are going with younger Justice League members who don't have all that much experience crime fighting, I just don't think it would make sense to have a DC universe with them. And this also includes Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Whether we want to deny it or not, she is a marketing machine. But you look at all 3 DC Universe movies, all the DCU movies. I don't know why I said universe, but DCU movies. Look at all the Harley Quinn movies that she's been in. Sure, she makes a lot of money with toys, but even with that first Suicide Squad movie, again, didn't do well with audience and critics, even though most people did love Harley Quinn in that movie. And I would say that was literally nearly everyone's introduction to Harley Quinn that isn't a already established DC fan. Not only that, but you look at Birds of Prey and the Suicide Squad. Both of them flopped. We could talk about whether they were good or bad movies. At the end of the day, they both flopped financially, and I just don't think Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is all that profitable. Not only that, but she also runs the risk of being overperformed by Lady Gaga and Joker 2, Folie à Deux. Because for all we know, that movie's going to come out and people are going to forget about Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn. Now, that's not saying many people can't play the role. Obviously, we've had multiple Batman. We had Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson, Christian Bale. We've had a lot of phenomenal actors. But at the end of the day, I just don't think Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn really shows you that, hey, you keep her because she's a moneymaker. I don't think she's all that much of a moneymaker. Just, again, 2 out of her 3 movies were financial flops. And one of them was a Harley Quinn solo movie. The Birds of Prey movie. Even though I like that movie, that was one of the worst marketed films of all time. Especially just the title alone was so stupid. From the beginning, they should have just called out Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. I don't get why they had to call it Birds of Prey. Especially because Harley Quinn is the selling point of that film. But that was a shitty, marketing department. Like, whoever marketed that movie no longer should have a job. No disrespect, but... And I just don't see any justifiable reason for keeping the Suicide Squad right now. Even though I love them, I love the cast. Obviously, they gave us the iconic Polka Dot Man. At the end of the day, I think building out a DC universe, I think you got to establish the core essential characters. And even then, wouldn't it feel weird? Because from what James Gunn has said, all the JL members are going to be younger. Wouldn't it feel weird if this Suicide Squad came out and was in the DC universe? All these characters much older, much more experienced than the core JL member. And I don't know, that just doesn't sit right with me. Now, again, I don't know what James Gunn's hatching, but to me, I just think if I'm in that boardroom, I'd say, hey, let's just put Suicide Squad to the side. They should not be seen as a core essential part of the universe. For now, let's focus on the JL. Let's focus on the actual important main major characters. But that's just me. Whatever it is you guys think, y'all let me know in the comment section down below. And I shall see y'all next time. Thank y'all for watching.